Okay, I think we are recording. So welcome again to the Silvanus webinar. The agenda is Silvanus as the integrated technological information platform for wildfire management. The introduction and objectives will be conducted by our coordination team, after which we will have the pilot demonstrations for Italy, for the Gargano National Park, for Portugal, for Cova da Beira, and for the Sabangao National Park in Indonesia, Kalimantan province. After this, we will follow up with an informal discussion where we will also focus on the objectives of the Silvanus within the goals set by the EU Green Week. So thank you very much. I will give now the floor to Michele. I can stop sharing my screen, and Michele Corletto, the coordinator for Silvanus project, can start sharing his. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Lavorco. I start to share my screen for our presentation.
And sorry, Michele, if I have not introduced myself, I will introduce myself right now. Lauro Kumaric, the Dissemination and Communication Manager for Silvanus. Thank you. So, Michele, you can start. Thanks.
Thanks again, Lavorco. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the EU Green Week program and specifically to the Silvanus presentation. Silvanus was conceptualized to be a technology driving platform to combat against wildfire. Through the rest of the presentation, we will highlight various forms of the technologies which have been selected to be within the scope of the project. Before we get started with the technical details, a few words about the organization structures and the fact sheet about Silvanus. The project has been funded by European Commission within Horizon 2020 framework. Silvanus is an innovation action, and the consortium focus on exploitation and marketability of solutions which are being developed in the project. The project started in October 2021 and will extend it up to March 2025. We are currently entering our 9th month of the project duration. The total project cost is just above 24 million euro, with the requested funding under 20 million euro. There are a total of 49 partners in the consortium extended across 15 European Union countries and 3 international partners. This is a very big consortium, and this is also the power of this project. The consortium includes a mix of industrial partners, stakeholders, small and medium enterprises, organizations, and academic partners. Now, let's start to review the scope of Silvanus in a nutshell. The vision of the project is to develop a climate-resilient technological platform for providing decision-making support for wildfire first responders in enabling efficient and effective decision-making capability in combating the initiation, spread, and rehabilitation of the forest region. The mission of the project is focused on bringing together 3 main interdisciplinary and interdependent aspects in the wildfire management: technology and scientific innovation, environmental and human factors. The project, in fact, adopts a bottom-up approach in collecting knowledge on the environmental condition of the forests, Such a process of gathering knowledge will rely on existing data sources, but we also complement it with the engagement of citizens as stakeholders in the forest management service. A special emphasis has been identified on the need for human factors to be considered and promote fire safety and fire safety policies among public. A central theme for the project development is to include human needs and requirements at every stage of the platform development. Finally, bringing together this knowledge on the environment and human factor, the project will focus on the development of a suitable technology and scientific innovation. The large scale or nature of the project has been divided across 3 phases to deliver a holistic resilience against wildfire. The first phase A, include prevention and preparedness, in which raising awareness on the wildfire impacts on climate change policies and changes to human behavior for fire safe practice will be promoted. In the next phases, phase B, detection and response, large-scale volume of heterogeneous data sources will be collected and processed to develop insight into the predictive models of fire spread. And in the final phases, the phase C, forest restoration policy, following the complete mitigation of wildfire, the project will undertake steps toward rehabilitation and restoration activities with recommendation on policies, legal framework, insurance schemes, and other instruments. Next, I shall hand over to Krishna, our Scientific Innovation Coordinator, to present in more details the envisaged innovation across each of the project phases. Please, Krishna, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Michele. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see my screen now. Thanks a lot, Michele. That sets the let's say the bird's eye view of where the Silvanus project stands in the overarching objective of the wildfire management. Now, as Michele said, let's dive a little bit more into some of the granular details of the project innovation and what we expect to deliver towards the end users by the end of the project. So I will go through some of the terminologies and some key technologies which have been identified in the project, and this, let's say, forms the scope of the entire project innovation within what we want to achieve. For the phase A aspect, which is on the prevention and preparedness, as they say, prevention is always better than the mitigation. I mean, than the response, which is always the most cost-effective way as well. To achieve this goal, what we have identified in the project itself is a certain number of user products which can be delivered towards the end user. So some of the end user products which are currently in the development stage, I will go through them one by one. So bear with me a second for all the, let's say, the technical details to be shared. The first one is the environment. We better need to understand the landscape in which the forests rest. What are the environmental and global climate change impacts which are affecting some of the key regions across Europe and across the international communities? And to achieve that, the main objective of, let's say, one of the objectives is to develop a forest landscape management toolkit. And effectively, this brings together a lot of local and regional knowledge about the landscape, the historic, let's say, the biodiversity that is currently included within the scope of the region, and also the potential threats the landscape could potentially face as well. Now, supplementing to that, we also look at the historical account of what has been the source of ignitions and source of fires in the historical context. And this is, and both of these aspects will be collected as reports, as documents, as surveys to end users. So this forms the first modality of information which will be ingested into the platform. Now, we also set ourselves a very high benchmark, not only us, but also with other projects and other initiatives who are actively working in this domain by developing an impact assessment framework. Effectively, the objective of such a framework is to enable us to detect, or let's say to establish a baseline. What is the effectiveness of such new technologies in not only in the detection phase, but also going beyond, let's say, the response activities and mitigation and rehabilitation, etc. So it's a very holistic impact assessment framework which is being developed, and the community comes together in developing such let's say cross impact frameworks. Now, looking at a little bit more in detail on the technical, on the specificity of the technical development, the project has identified semantic modeling and knowledge representation as a core component in which a lot of large scale volume of resources and also the inherent heterogeneity of information sources can be universally modeled. And semantic frameworks is one of the way to go forward when we want to establish common cognitive representations of information science, and also to extend beyond, let's say, establishing a common framework upon which different terminologies can mean certain things. And we will be using this as a basis, and I will talk a little bit more on the types of different complex data sources we have in the project in the next coming slides. Subsequently, we have two main user products. Again, these are delivered specifically targeting specific end users. And the first one is the training of firefighters. In terms of one of the challenges the project faces is how do we prevent loss of life? How can we better prepare the firefighters to better understand the dynamic nature of a wildfire? In the historical context, the wildfires have been increasing in the recent past, but in the historical context, let's say the firefighters are much more aware and well trained in the urban areas, in the household fires and industrial accident locations, etc. But taking that knowledge of a controlled environment or uncontrolled, still we have a much better overview of the industrial scale to a large scale wildfire area, like in terms of the landscape, in terms of geography, the areas can extend up to few tens of kilometers to few hundreds of kilometers, as we saw in the case of California fire, and similarly in other locations across Greece and Italy and Turkey and other places where the spread is quite vast. And the speed in which the spread happens is also extremely dependent upon the environmental conditions, the wind factors, etc. So given the very nature of dynamically changing conditions, how can we better train the firefighters to combat and be ready for any certain environmental changes? To this end, the use of AR, VR technologies is being identified as one key source of information modeling, where we can create our own, let's say, scenarios against which the firefighters can be trained. And the training will also need to focus primarily on teamwork and also to understand understand the geography and the landscape as well. So the knowledge that we collect from the landscape models, which I mentioned earlier, towards the historical cases, will all feed into the development of a training methodology and the training framework. This will also result in a certain amount of content being generated upon which the firefighters can be trained. The next one is the citizen engagement framework. And as we said from the beginning, awareness and let's say awareness promotion among the public and also the stakeholders is quite crucial. Even a small behavioral change could have a huge impact in how the citizens interact with fire and have the mutual respect. If we don't treat the nature with some degree of let's say contempt, then the spread of the wildfire can be really huge. And historically speaking, the human intervention in causing or in resulting an ignition is a lot higher. and especially in uncontrolled situations, rather than a natural cause being caused by a specific incident, whether it can be environmental conditions or lightning or any other natural causes. So citizen engagement framework primarily focuses on enhancing the knowledge, the awareness, and the need for being much more inclusive in the way the information about a certain forest, about the biodiversity of the forest, or any other aspects that are interesting and relevant for the forest to be shared with the public. The more we generate this knowledge and share it with the public, we believe there will be a lot more, let's say, feedback, or a lot more engagement of the regional people, and also the tourists who visit some natural parks across Europe, to be much more engaged and be let's say, aware of certain behaviors which can ultimately cause the ignition of forest fires. So those are the key user products that will be delivered in the context of the phase A, which is on the prevention and preparedness. Now let's look at the phase B activities. Now that we try to educate public, we also need to make sure there are sufficient amount of technological interventions which are currently available for the firefighters to constantly and continuously monitor the state of the forest. As I said, in addition to, let's say, the human intervention, the natural causes of the fire, natural causes which can result in a fire, is also quite high. And what are those conditions? We started to identify the climate and weather data services for nowcasting, which effectively means we develop weather and climate models forecasting in the next few hours to few days, and then also taking a very macroscopic analysis in terms of the statistical averages over a period of an year, and identifying the periods in which significant risk factors will be identified, especially since we are coming up to a summer period. The memories of the fire from last year may still be with us, to take into account what type of preventive activities we can take, but also have sufficient technologies to be able to detect the fire at an early stage. The institutional device integration is primarily to identify whether there is any environmental changes resulting from the fire itself, or it can also result from the use of, let's say, CCTV cameras, the IoT devices, etc. So a lot of information which can be collected on a ground up, or let's say on a bottom up approach, can enable us to detect and be able to exactly like to detect the fire at a very early stage. Complementing the data sources from the ground, we also have the Earth observation data sources, which will be pre-processed and analyzed to have a much more holistic view of the potential regions which are to be much more susceptible to the fire, and try to develop models which can offer more predictive risk assessment for the region. So even if there is a fire, then the detection phases can effectively counteract and go and try to mitigate it. Now, all the three data sources I identified so far are much more, let's say, general, and it's coming from existing infrastructure, from the IT infrastructure. But as Michele said, human factors do play a very key role, and they can have the first-hand knowledge of the fire, which whenever it is being, let's say, originated. So the use of social media, which has been shown to be one of the most potent tools in which the public engagement can also enhance the knowledge we can gather and deliver for the firefighters, is one of the user products to be delivered in the scope of the project. Especially, we have identified Twitter as a basis upon which any reports about a fire, whether some people see as smoke, whether some people see as fire, whether some people identify the potentials of a fire being ignited, can all be tweeted or tagged, and in terms of the use of GIS locations. And there is a very let's say, interesting technology behind the large data, let's say the big data analysis and the frameworks to effectively identify a potential event which can be shared with the firefighters to take preventive actions, and also, if there is a fire, to auto detect and mitigate it. Which again goes to the fact that human factors do play a very key role. The next user product is to again go back to the previous slide where I said the loss of human lives should be prevented at any cost, and we want to have zero fatalities coming out of any fire or any uncontrolled ignition in the wild. Two of those, let's say, objectives can be achieved, or at least to a large extent can benefit the community, especially the firefighters, is the use of drones. And drones have become a lot more pervasive these days, ranging from hobbyists to environmentalists to governance and etc. So there's a large scale and scope of the use of drones. And you'll also hear more about drones in our pilot demonstration presentations. But in this context, we want to be able to perform and undertake surveillance and also establish communication infrastructure and other areas of interest where drones can sufficiently deliver us the right information, the right knowledge in terms of the fire spread, also to be able to provide us the insight upon the state of the fire as it spreads through the forest. Similarly, the ground robots can really allow the firefighters to establish a much broader, let's say, much broader frontline area. So again, which will result in loss of life. Again, this is one of the key aspects where the ground robots can be deployed, and we also have some early stage results which I will be sharing shortly as well from the use of ground robots. Now, you can see that there is a lot of different types of data sources that we collect, and also different modalities of information sources. All of this is then clustered, or let's say is then analyzed in this big framework, which is the big data services, which we'll talk about, the GIS-based systems to also predict and develop models to analyze the spread of the fire, at what rate the spread of the fire takes place, what are the potential, let's say, mitigation strategies which can be deployed, whether in the context of creating a wetline, predicting the change in the wind direction so that the change of the direction of the fire is also controlled in several ways, and also have the knowledge to identify whether there are any people to be evacuated, or any property, any man-made structures to be protected, whether there is any economic damage that could be prevented even before the spread of the fire. So there is a lot of intelligence analysis to be taken place, and this is one of the, as the title even says, the technology-driven solution is able to deliver a much more informed decision-making process for the firefighters. And towards this end, we expect to be able to detect the fire and also provide, or let's say, deploy the response in order to mitigate the fire and completely put off the fire which has been spreading for a while now, or even before. Now, all of that then leads us to what happens afterwards. What are the needs and necessities of rehabilitating a particular region? Now, forest itself is a very interesting, or presents a very interesting socio-economic activity in which there are several communities who rely upon the natural resources available within the forest. Any forest or any fire that devastates a forest also has huge implications on the economic activity surrounding the region, and it has a huge impact on the economics of the region as well. So one of the programs, or one of the activities of the project, is also to go beyond and look at what type of ecological resilience program we should develop. Is there methodologies in which a forest can become a much more, let's say, resilient towards wildfire? Can we develop solutions, or can we monitor the, let's say, the biodiversity parameters to make sure the spread of the fire is slowed down with the help of, let's say, the different species of trees, or any other such activities or such parameters to be taken into account. So those are the, let's say, long-term, short-term, or let's say the medium-term and long-term impacts upon the forest resilience program and ecological sustainability that goes beyond. And towards this end, we also develop models for resilience process. What needs to happen when you restore a forest? Can we learn lessons from the previous historical case studies, and also develop methodologies to better enhance the resilience? In terms of this, one topic that we really focused more on, and also take into account that we have the benefit of the international consortium, is to look at soil rehabilitation strategy. Now, when you have a forest fire that goes through the surface, The temperature on the surface also, or let's say, has an impact on the soil density and the soil the ingredients, the nutrients on the soil, and there is also impact on the ground worms, which are also let's say useful and beneficial for making the soil more fertile for the forest rehabilitation. So what kind of data analysis that we can conduct, whether it can be a chemical analysis to better understand the nature of the soil, whether the soil can be rehabilitated, or whether there is any need for soil to be imported with more or rich with the rich natural resources, etc. So those are the types of analysis that will be carried out in the context of the rehabilitation strategy. But going beyond the rehabilitation, we also need economic stimulus to rehabilitate. And given the current, let's say, the global economic, let's say, strain upon governments, upon people, what would be the best way forward? Can we invest into forest restoration, which can give some benefits to local communities, and how long will that process take? And all of this, let's say, knowledge that we develop in the project will also lead to policy recommendations, which can lead to sustainability and resilient forest management services. The goals are much more, let's say, much beyond the scope of the project, and this is also one of the reasons we also aim to set up a Center for Sustainability and Adaptation Strategies, which I will talk a little bit more in the next few slides as well. Now that we have looked at the user products, you may be asking the question, how are we going to integrate such a huge number of data sources, products, analysis, etc., and what is that is going to look like in reality? Now, it's very complex to show in one single diagram, but we did our best, excuse me, to basically summarize what we had, what does Silvanus technology intervention might look like in reality. So here, if you just allow me to use my mouse. So all the data analysis will be carried out in the cloud, which is the, let's say, the central point of data ingestion, which will be carried out continuously for different types of sources of information that is being collected across the project. The command center deployed in the cloud will coordinate with what we call as the forward command centers. Now, these forward command centers may be pre-established, or it can be deployed on the field as and when a particular fire has been, let's say, detected. And the detection process will be carried out by one of several ways. And let's say the location where the origin of the fire will be an event that is being triggered from the cloud command center. The forward command centers are a lightweight, let's say, analytical toolkits powered with edge computing, and it also includes the first responders to be able to reach the site in a safe distance, and then coordinate the response across multiple forward command centers, combating the spread of the fire not from one location, but in a much more coordinated fashion. And the knowledge that we need to gain from the state of the fire in terms of the intensity, the spread, the wind conditions, etc., and also, will all be gathered from what we call as the far edge devices, the IoT devices, which I mentioned will be deployed on the forest itself. So in terms of, apologies. In terms of the phase A product, a lot of computational components will be deployed in the cloud. In terms of phase B, this is where we go to the near edge components, and there will be a lot more on-field coordination between the forward command centers and the cloud command center. And for the phase C, the knowledge that we have obtained based on the type of devastation and the changes to the forest region between the pre-ignition process and the post, let's say, mitigation strategies will also be developed, or will also be used to develop a lot more knowledge on the forest, let's say, governance framework, policy recommendations, etc. In terms of some early stage results, because I have been talking a lot about some big, let's say, ideas and vision. So let's look at some early stage results. As Michele said, we are about 9 months into the project, so the results are quite early. But this gives a flavor of what to expect in the next forthcoming period of the project duration. The first one is the knowledge modeling framework, which I mentioned. We have adopted the use of semantic knowledge, semantic repositories, the schemas, because one challenge that we identified talking to the community as a whole is there is no consensus on data representation. Every firefighter, every system, a national system or a regional system, have their own ways of data representation. If you take a simple concept of a location, okay, which is universally accepted location as a latitude, longitude, then you still have variations between altitude, between the timestamps in which the location can be identified, can be represented, etc. So the main objective of semantic modeling is to be able to identify and synchronize the terminology on the data that is being collected, but also to deliver to the community how different systems can coexist and what is the semantic equivalence of certain terminology used by different firefighters and different communities. And this actually provides us with a much more stronger foundation upon which we can build our analysis tools, because we can be sure that as long as there is semantic interoperability between multiple data sources, our components can coexist and can process information from other data services. So this is, let's say, one of the early stage results that we are aiming to deliver in the project. And then the next one is, one of the biggest challenges is you have so much of data collected, and how are we going to populate the knowledge base? You can't automatically, I mean, there needs to be an automated solution for doing that. And this is the Casper framework developed by Catalink, which can, I mean, which can automatic, or which, let's say, which can automate to a large extent the ingestion of data sources towards on the left hand side with APIs, with databases, and enrich the knowledge base within the scope of the project, which is represented on the right hand side of the slide. So the entire process is automated. I don't want to go through a lot more in detail. I'm sure that there will be many more opportunities in the future to have some real-time demonstration of how such automation services will be carried out. And next is the landscape model. So how can we effectively use technologies such as mobile phone applications, which are much more pervasive these days, and the use of deep learning models and the AI algorithms to better automate, better engage, and be able to collect information in a much more large scale process. So this is the mobile application to capture the forest biodiversity, which will also include not only the trees, the species, but also go beyond into the soil structures, whether there is any useful information which can be analyzed and processed by computer vision technology. So these are again, one of the user products to be released in the next, let's say, a few months for any further interactions. Now, those are the phase A products. So now let's look at some of the phase B activities. And one early stage results that we have delivered is the use of the ground robots, as you can see, with the different physical structures. And one of the main results, or let's say the expectations, is to be able to equip the robot with LiDAR sensors, in which the landscape can be modeled, can be visualized. And I'm sure you will have much more opportunity to hear about the threat of energy distribution lines across the forest, which was one of the primary sources of the California fire, which was quite devastating for the nature. Now, here is one example of how the LiDAR systems will be deployed and will be used, in which, let's say, the research challenges still exist, but primarily you can see that the different color coding gives the perceptual depth in which let's say, the landscape can be visualized. And this is a very interesting piece of work that we are currently undertaking in the project as well. In terms of the phase C, what happens beyond the scope of the forest? Again, we are developing a biodiversity index. I'm sure you will have much more opportunity to hear more in the forthcoming presentations to describe about the framework in which the context of biodiversity, the ecological resilience program to be developed. The parameters and the methodology will again feed into a quantitative process in which a certain let's say, category of information or category of metric can be associated to a particular region. To achieve this, these are the types of, let's say, categories which we have identified. And the next challenge is how can we convert these parameters into a quantitative metric so we can associate a particular value and have algorithms to be able to automatically deliver measures like, let's say, on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 on the level of ecological resilience program that can be associated to a specific region. Now, we also have been working on the governance structure. So these are some early stage, let's say, brainstorming activities being carried out in the way that how can we effectively engage with the governance, with the financial sector, with the local communities, and how to build a better models, better ecological framework models, and go forward with the legal process as well. So those are, let's say, the early stage results. Now let's look at some additional details about the state of the project and where we are. The project is, again, very ambitious. It takes a lot of mobilization of effort, resources. But what we have carried out in terms of the methodology for the planning of the activities is to expect a first organizational deployment of the integrated platform towards, let's say, the first period of the project duration, from which we have an iterative process of the different trial periods. And each trial period, there will be a subsequent, let's say, engagement of the stakeholders, the community, and we will be promoting some of the activities going forward, which I'm sure Joanna from Asset will also be making an announcement of following me. One important aspect to consider is, since we are limited to the incidents of the wildfire, we also have the option to create a tabletop-like exercise where we can effectively demonstrate the capabilities of the technologies without necessarily having to cause a fire, which is not what we want to do as well. So again, all these different activities will feed into each other, and a coherent, let's say, step-by-step process will be appropriately published as we go along in the duration of the entire project's life cycle. Now, few words about the European and the international pilots, out of which 3 of the demonstration scopes will be presented by my colleagues here. Each and every single pilot has been identified to specifically understand the challenges and the sources of the fire. And you will see very little overlap between one pilot to the other. And this is very important to make sure that we cover as many scenarios as possible in the scope of the project to effectively deliver a much broader scope of the platform, which can facilitate technology interventions at every stage or every cause of the fire ignition. Okay, I will just stop here and I will not go through much more in detail at this moment. And then for the international pilots, we also again have significant, let's say, variations across the 3 different pilot sites we have identified in the project. Now, this is the last summary where I want to pick up upon the CASD framework, which I mentioned in the previous slides. So this is expected to be a legal entity which can provide a knowledge base, because there will be a lot of innovation carried out in the project. And what we want to establish is what happens to the knowledge beyond the duration of the project. And the project consortium is committed towards providing the sustainability of the results to the community of users and to a much more broader scale of end users. And we will be, our plan is to establish a Center for Adaptation Strategies and Sustainability who can take the, let's say, the effective role of making sure there are results and the knowledge, especially in terms of the knowledge transfer programs that we can establish, can exist beyond the scope of the project itself, and provide a continued, let's say, support for the community, and try to provide better insights into fire management, ecological frameworks, biodiversity, etc. That's I think I have spoken enough. The rest is about the project structure and the way that we have consolidated our project outline. I will stop now, and then I will now hand over to Joanna from Asset, who will be presenting the next, let's say, one of the pilot demonstration sites, and promote some of the activities that they are currently organizing as well. So thank you very much. I will stop sharing my screen now. There we go.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Okay. You can see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Krishna and Lovorko, for the introduction, and Michele Corleto, of course. And I'm Giovanna Mangialardi from Asset, regional strategic agency for ecological and sustainable development from the Apulia region in the South Italy. Asset is a public agency bounded to the Apulia region that is active in many sectors, and in detail many projects of Asset are focused on the prevention and environmental damage and hazard, risk mitigation, and technological innovation and sustainability. In the Silvanus project, Asset will contribute to the prevention, detection, and restoration activities related to the Apulian forest fire. In detail, Asset will coordinate with the Fincon's partner, the Gargano Park Italian pilot, in collaboration with other key stakeholders, local key stakeholders, the civil protection, the park authorities, and other key stakeholders for the project. In detail, Asset will contribute to prevention, detection, and restoration activities, and in detail in all the phases of the project. One of the scenario demonstration will take place in the Gargano National Park, and we'll see the involvement of various entities. All Asset in the project is also responsible for the collection and analysis of historical fire records, including details of the causes of forest fire in the project's 11 pilot sites, as said before, and investigate analysis which will be used to model the demonstration scenarios carried out in the work package 9. Some data of our scenario and our pilot. The Gargano National Park is an historical and geographical sub-region in the province of Foggia, Apulia, southern Italy, and consisting of a wide isolated mountain massif made of island and several peaks, and forming a kind of backbone of the Gargano promontory projected into the Adriatic Sea. The Gargano National Park is one of the Italian projects, as said, jointly with the Park of Tepilora in Sardinia. The National Park of Gargano is established in 1991 according to national law, and is located in the same promontory of the province of Foggia. Covering about 120,000 hectares, including totally or partially 18 municipalities, including the Tremiti Island. The location of our pilot on the Mediterranean Sea lends to a climate of high temperature and most condition with the precipitation during every season. The temperature change through the years and is gradual and moderate. Data concerning the years from 2003 and 2012 show that the fires in the Gargano area occur almost exclusively in summer, during June, July, August, and September. The Gargano Park has a IB plan for the planning of the activities of prediction, prevention, and active fight against the forest fire. And this plan that is very important for us because contain many data useful for the pilot demonstration, including also some cartography that I will show you now. This is a map from of the territory of Gargano, and as you see, many height naturalistic area are included in this context. The territory, the Gargano territory, is affected by a large number of protected areas, most of which are included in the perimeter of the Gargano National Park. This is a map of the land use. The land use divided into various classes of the Corinne land cover legend and represent the first level of knowledge, very important for the project, with many data. In general, we have we can see that the percentage of homogeneous group of land use classes regard 35 land use classes. The 30% is for the wooded area classes. About the 24% is agriculture areas, and about the 15% is covered by woodland and shrub vegetation. Is a very complex territory with many kind of land use, and for the project could be a challenge for both the activities of prevention and then for the restoration. This map is the fire risk, the low, the medium, and the height risk calculated by the Gargano National Park. And in this map, we can see the areas affected by fires and most common causes. The municipalities most affected by the phenomenon of fire are San Marco in Lemis, Vieste, Cagnano Varano, Monte Sant'Angelo, Peschici, and Vico del Gargano. And the most common causes are pastoral activity, divided into technical and renewal of pasture expansion, the involuntary fires due to, for example, caused by cigarettes or other kind of causes by human, and in some case agriculture causes are very, very present as causes of fire in this territory. This is a map of the ARIF teams that are responsible for the monitoring of the fire in this context. And this is a kind of connection among the project phases, phase A, phase B, phase C, that Krishna mentioned before, linked to the national organization of a life cycle of a fire. We have the prediction in which the Parco del Gargano could be the responsible of these activities, also for the prevention. The active fighting is a responsibility of the civil protection, while the restoration, that is the phase C of the project, is managed both from Parco del Gargano and municipalities, because because they are the main manager of this kind of activities. Asset is involved in another project, an Interreg project, EDER, in which a platform was developed. For us, it is important because this platform, Synapsi, is an innovative platform for decision support system in the management of environmental and territory condition. And this is an opportunity for the territory to link this kind of platform with the project. As said before, Asset is involved in phase A, phase B, and phase C. In detail, the phase A, prevention and preparedness activities, will include activities aimed at improving fire risk reporting, including specification of vulnerable areas, continuous monitoring to prevent risk with enhanced detection technologies, citizen engagement. For us is very important. We will include the scholarship and other stakeholder, local stakeholder, for create awareness and engagement among key actors of the process, but also citizen. The prevention and the preparedness activities phase will foresee activities aimed at improving the reporting of fire risk, including specification of significantly vulnerable areas, and in detail will just create a strong connection with the key players, as said, like the Gargano National Park Authority, the Civil Protection of Puglia region, and so on. The phase B, detection and response activities, in which we are included, phase will include activities aimed at improving early detection and monitoring of fire according to innovative technologies and communication infrastructure, sensor, for example, and air or ground vehicles. In detail, in our territory, we will use air vehicles, integration and modeling-based data analysis, for example, with the use of GIS data. And Asset will develop the scenario demonstration in coordination with the other key stakeholder. And in phase C, restoration and adaptation phase, will include activities aimed at building a knowledge base useful for orienting the restoration policies. That for the Apulia region and for Asset is very important, and to building a kind of knowledge base useful for orienting the restoration policies and the scenario of forest and landscape regeneration. These activities will be supported by a decision support tool for the evaluation, for example, of the optimal alternatives for forecasting and mitigating impacts from a resilient perspective. This phase will foresee the involvement also in this case of different stakeholders according to the participatory process. We have a law in Apulia region about the participatory process, and will be aimed at promoting sustainable action for the forest and its biodiversity. We are organized a large demonstration scenario. The forest fire exercise can be carried out outside the period Okay, outside the period of serious danger for forest fire. As a precautionary measure, we exclude the period from the 1st of June to the 30th of September. We will organize this big demonstration scenario probably in April 2023. And in this big demonstration scenario, in which we can test the technology of the Silvanus project, we will involve volunteers enrolled in the regional list of civil protection with specific training in the sector. We will involve the structure that make up the regional civil protection system according to the legislative framework, also national and regional framework, and the regional personnel with specific training in the fighting operation direction. We will use the technology of the project, but also our regional aircraft, air tractor and fire boss, and the fleet of the National Fire Department. And to organize this demonstration scenario for us and for the civil protection is very important to create a kind of plans document and to do many meetings to plan this scenario. The events could be in the Gargano area, involved many of the stakeholder, and the exercise should also test the ability to coordinate air, sea and land operation, as well as civil protection could improve their processes by means of the Silvanus technologies. In the following July, we will do an interim General Assembly in Bari, where after the 2 days in Bari focused on technical aspect of the project, we have arranged for the 7th of July a first preliminary visit to the Gargano National Park to organize some demonstration aspect, and we have also invited the Civil Protection and the National Park Authority. In this visit, we will begin to collect initial data with the help of partners and other institutions. I'm finished. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Luisa. You can continue with the Portuguese case study. Thank you.
I'm sharing my presentation. Do you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so I'll start. I'm Luisa Serra, and I'm presenting you the Portuguese pilot site that is located in Cova da Beira. Sorry, no, it's working. And in this demo site, the partners that are working on this demo site, it's us, the Portuguese Energy Utilities. I belong to the new R&D. That's the Research and Development business unit of EDP, the Portuguese Electrical Utility. Then we've got the Water Portuguese Utility, Águas de Portugal. And these two partners, they are very important in this demo because this demo addresses critical infrastructures on energy and water. And also among the partners of the Portuguese demo, we've got Terra Prima. Terra Prima, it's a company that owns and explores an agricultural farm and a real productive system and a very technological one, and they have been a very valuable partner. They provide the physical venue for the demo, and they are very up to date into technological issues. And since the Portuguese demo aims at phase A and phase C, phase A fire prevention and phase C fire restoration, aims to use natural-based solutions. So we wanted to engage with a very technological partner on biodiversity, and that's where comes Martech from the Portuguese Instituto Superior Técnico, an R&D top university in Portugal. And so this is the Portuguese cluster. 2 utilities, one on energy, one on water, a farm owner and manager, and a biodiversity expert. And you will see how this develops in the demo that we are demonstrating. Please. Sorry, but oh, it's here. It disappeared. Sorry. When I was showing like this, it disappeared. So sorry for taking my time. But the demo, as you can see, it's on Portugal. And Portugal, we have placed here a map with the fire incidents, the fire risk. And as you can see, we have huge fire risks in some Portuguese areas. And our demo, it's here, and it's on a region that englobates 3 parishes: Covilhã, Fundão, and Belmonte. The 3 parishes create what they call Cova da Beira. It's called Cova da Beira because it's between 2 mountains, Serra da Estrela and Serra da Gardunha, and it's in a region very, very, very characteristic by its top quality agricultural products and also industry and forestry. It was one of the first spots in Portugal to be industrialized because it had the water and also the water height from the mountains, so it had hydropower to power the textile industries. As of today, it is a very agricultural and productive system with a high compartmentalized landscape and with the agricultural use, some granitic outcrops and oak woodlands. So it's a very, how to say, it has the landscape changes a lot. It's a very interesting mosaic. So now looking into the farm in which we will be developing the Silvanus project, this is, as I've told you, it's a very diverse and technological farm. It has areas with crops, with parcels. It does cow production, sheep production. So it's about 500 hectares, and it has been developing lots of sustainability projects since 1994. It has been doing lives and H2020 projects. It has animal production, so it's the cows and sheep. The land cover, it's very diverse, as I told you. It has several infrastructures, not only for agricultural uses, but also other like electric lines, roads, water reservoirs. The forest risk classification ranges from medium to high, and it has already implemented a huge monitoring system. So it has it uses satellites, data, drones. It uses controls on the sheep and the cows. It uses video surveillance. It has a local weather station, field sensors, and all of this is articulated in a very interesting LoRaN network. Also, keeping with the how do we say our pilot. This is the views that you can have from this farm. If you look up north, this is Serra da Estrela, the highest point on continental Portugal. So what we want to do with this pilot is to apply Silvanus results, test them in critical infrastructures using critical resources, water and energy. We want to optimize our agricultural practices using digital technologies, and I will go more deep on this. We want to support critical agricultural practices involving nature management approaches to fire detention, and what we consider by nature management approaches. We are using cows and sheep to control forest fire to prevent, in the sense that we have made some experiences with different parcels. Some of them we have placed many animals doing the grazing there, and we have a very clean landscape. So the surface fire has more difficulties in propagate, and even eliminated some of the levels between the surface and the top of the trees due to the intensive use of cows and sheep. And if you look to both parcels, you'll see the difference. And this is a very interesting result that we have as of today, and we are now working to share it with the Silvanus platform. Also, we are using digital technologies, namely satellite and drone images, and we are developing tools that enable us to have a deeper understanding of how the vegetation is evolving, the vegetation volume, and consequently the fire risk to our assets. Here you can see where we are today. So we are doing the identification, characterization, and pre-processing of relevant data sources, heterogeneous data sources, as our colleagues have already mentioned, namely Krishna. We are contributing to the Silvanus requirements, namely to the ontologies and to the platform specifications regarding all of these problems and issues. We have identified fire-related threats and challenges for critical infrastructures in water and energy, and also for agriculture and biodiversity, because this pilot, what it has different is that not only we focus on these critical assets, water and energy, but also we want to embed the problems and the solutions with the biodiversity and agriculture, because this is a real system, a real productive system. And if we find holistic solutions that really contribute to the four fields, it's a very interesting outcome. So we are harnessing multiple data sources and IoT to prevent the data that we need for the wildfire management. And we are articulating Silvanus with the paraphernalia of pre-existing projects, because the farm and IST had already more than 10 projects on these issues. ADP and EDP also, both of them have many projects, not 10, but almost 10, EDP and the electrical utility and the water utility. So seeing the map, how Silvanus fits on all of these has been a challenge, but it's going very well, and we have some interesting results as of today. And so this is the team that we are very proud to present to you in one of our meetings and also field trips that we have done. And these are some views from the farm, from the critical assets, and this is the coffee break that you can hope to have in the demo visits. So you are all invited to come and visit us in one of our open days that we will be organizing during this project. And so I will pass the floor to my colleagues of Amicon.
Thank you, Luisa. Let me share my screen. Okay, hello everyone. I'm Pusrini from Universitas Amicon, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to me to present in this great event about Indonesia as one of the pilot in Silvanus project in phase C that are responsible to restoration and adaptation activities. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelagic country with more than 17,000 islands. Sumatra, and then Borneo, Java, Sulawesi, and Papua is the large island in Indonesia. Indonesia's climate is almost entirely tropical, dominated by the tropical rainforest. It's found in every large island of Indonesia. We have two seasons, dry and wet season. Dry peak is in about July to August, and wet peak is in December to February. Based on data from Forestry Ministry Indonesia, Indonesia has 94.1 million hectares of forest land area, more than 50% of the entire mainland. Indonesia is the second largest country in the world with the largest peat area after Brazil, with 22.5 million hectares. It's making Indonesia capable to absorb 30% of the world's carbon. Indonesia's forest wide range is at 8th top area in the world. Indonesia's size, tropical climate, and archipelagic geography support one of the world's highest level of biodiversity, and it is among the 17 megadiverse countries identified by Conservation International. Over 25,000 flowering plants comprise 10% of the world's flowering plant species, 500 mammalian species, 600 reptilian species, 1,500 species of birds, 270 species of amphibians, and over 2,500 species of fish, constituting 45% of the world fish species. Indonesia is second only to Australia in terms of total endemic species, with 36% species of bird and 39% species of mammal being endemic. This is some of the species endemic in Indonesia. There are Rafflesia arnoldi, orangutan, then greater bird of paradise, and Komodo dragon. The data of forest and land fire provided by Forestry Ministry through Web Sipongi, data from 2017 to 2022 shows that from 2017 to 2019, there are increasing of the fire forest incident, and huge increasing happened in 2019. Government produced some policy, and it significantly decreased forest fire in 2020 and 2021. And data in the 2022 is still running. And until now, the wide area of forest fire is only 2% from 2019. Hopefully, the condition can be maintained so that there is no significant increase in this year. Indonesia has 34 provinces, one of them being Central Kalimantan or Kalimantan Tengah. This province is located in Borneo Island. The capital city is Kota Palangkaraya. Central Kalimantan cover area is more than 15 million hectares and have 2 million people. Central Kalimantan has extensive forests. The forest area in Central Kalimantan is the second largest in Indonesia after Papua province. Central Kalimantan is one area that has a high potential for forest fire. The incidence of forest fire in Kalimantan province from 2017 until 2022 is shown here, and the incident major fires occurred in 2019 and declined sharply in 2020 and 2021, and hopefully in 2022 as well. Forest fire give impact to the ecology. Yeah, it's caused flora and fauna extinction, damaging ecological succession, and it's also decreased peat quality, change of peat composition, and it's also cause economic health loss. To preserve tropical peat forest, the Minister of Forest Indonesia designate the Sabango area in Central Kalimantan Province as a national park with area of more than 500,000 hectares. Sabango National Park administratively it's in 3 regencies in Katingan, Kota Palangkaraya, and Pulang Pisau. Sabango National Park is the largest tropical peat forest conservation area in Indonesia. It's more than 90% of its area is a peat ecosystem. Sabango National Park has unique characteristic of its biodiversity, and some species are not found in other habitats. Regarding the data from Sabango National Park in 2019, there are 5,826 orangutan, 5 endemic primates, 808 species of flora, 182 species of bird, and 72 species of fish. As I mentioned before, Indonesia is the second largest country in the world with the largest peat after Brazil, and Central Kalimantan or Kalimantan Tengah is the second extensive peatlands in Indonesia. Sabango National Park has a variation of peat depth between 1 meter until 12 meters and up to 14 meters at some points. In this project, we will identify the rehabilitation strategies after forests get burdened by fire. Some of the rehabilitation strategy in Sabango National Park to rewilding tropical peat swamp forests are build canal blocking, and then replanting tree, build many wells. This is the demonstration plan for pilot Indonesia. We will do field observation. There are we divide area into 3 categories. There are benchmark area, and then post-fire area, and the third one is rehabilitation area. We will do in the first and second, we will use data collection method using satellite imaging, drone imaging, document study, and soil measurement. And in each area in this category will be do one time observation, only one time. But in the third categories, in the rehabilitation area, we will do the same data collection method and adding policy study and rehabilitation program. And then we will do periodically observation in this place to see the progress after rehabilitation. The data collected will be used to analyze leaf area index calculation regarding the satellite data, drone data, and then soil analysis, statistic and qualitative analysis, and policy study and rehabilitation program analysis of the biodiversity parameter. To help stakeholders collect biodiversity data, we also plan to make a mobile application that can identify kind of plant and animal in the forest by leaf and animal image using machine learning. The result of identification then will be collected in the database to analyze population estimation of each species in the observation area. Visualization will be served to help stakeholders understand the data and analysis result. As an international partner, Indonesia is actively in the SILVANUS project, including following all the discussion online or in person with all the partners. AMICOM teams also establish good relationship with stakeholders in forest fire management and conservation in Indonesia. We visited the forest, taking some data needed to be collected, and will do periodically in the future along this project. That's all that I can share with you this moment. Thank you for your attention. Matur nuwun, terima kasih. And next, I will give the floor to Krishna. I will stop my share screen.
Thanks, Kristini. And we always appreciate your active participation, especially the physical ones where things were not very easy traveling in the, excuse me, traveling during the COVID period, despite some limitations I've been experiencing now. So I just want to conclude by saying that this project is huge, and we are not alone. And we have been in collaboration with other projects. So let me quickly share my screen to also the contributions of other project partners now. Let me just share my screen. Here it is. All right. I hope you can see my screen. So here is an acknowledgement that we are not alone. We are together with the 3 other, let's say, the innovation action projects which have been funded in the Green Deal call from last year. But more importantly, we also established quite a good number of relationships with the project which started 1 year before us, which is the Fire AU risk, and also the Fire Links, which is a CSA action, again, let's say bringing together or aim to bring together stakeholders, and Silvanus project was represented in several of those meetings as well. A quick word on Firelog, who have been our, let's say, who have been very closely linked to us, not only in facilitating some of these conversations, but also directing us in a more focused manner to consolidate the contributions of several projects. I mean, you can imagine that the scale, the amount of activity that is being carried out is quite vast. So sometimes we do feel like we are working in isolation. And Firelog project has facilitated the platform in which all our individual, let's say, contributions are being brought together, achieve consensus, and also to benefit from a structured plan in which all the different contributions can be consolidated. Just to give one example, the impact assessment framework is not just for Silvanus, but it will be a part of the whole ecosystem to be developed in terms of achieving the benchmark in a much more broader perspective in the context of other projects, also developing similar benchmarks, similar impact assessment frameworks, and trying to put together in a more coherent framework. So I think George and Vasiliki are here. Perhaps George, you want, or Vasiliki, please, maybe you can share a few words about Firelog and share some activities that you are currently being carried out in the context of establishing synergies with other projects as well.
Hello, hi to everyone. So the issue, as Krishna, as you said, the Firelog, let's say it's the coordination action, and actually it's a difficult task because they have to coordinate 3 huge projects, and not only 3, because in the call you remember that it was the three projects that will be funding, but practically also Firelog also has connections with the Fire Risk, which is another, and Fire Risk is another huge project as well.
Indeed.
And of course the other projects. At least Firelog now concentrates and tries to, as we said, tries to homogenize, to harmonize, let's say, the impact cost and all the green deals and the similar of the green deals fire projects, if you want, have, let's say, a similar approach in this in the impact session. Keep note that the Firelog has established five working groups. It's the infrastructure working group. This is the one that we lead as KEMEA. We lead the infrastructure working group. It's the insurance working group, the civil protection working group, societal working group, and the environmental ecology working group. So if you see, there are 5 groups that practically try to deal with all the issues of the if we can say the disaster management cycle. We have the prevention and preparedness, as you call it, as you want to call it, or the mitigation, the response phase, and the restoration phase. You want to ask something?
No, I just want to say that it is very important for Firelog to establish these working groups. And throughout the presentation of Silvanus, we never mentioned, or we never explicitly identified the financial sector's contribution, the insurance working group's contribution, because we do want to insure some of the products.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, despite the budget, despite the largeness of the consortium, we couldn't have a stakeholder represented in the consortium. So having Firelog offering Silvanus the benefit of having a dialogue and having a direct conversation with the insurance sector plays a very key role to fill in some of the gaps, and possibly other projects may have similar gaps that can be bridged, and we come together as a whole, addressing the whole entire stakeholder requirements, and make sure that even some gaps in the project can be fulfilled with inputs from Firelog and their activities. So I just wanted to highlight how important it is for that.
Actually, that's the point of Firelog. You know, it has all the Firelog. It's a huge, let's say, supporting platform. I don't know, procedure, if you want, not only just as a project, but the goal is to try to, let's say, fill in gaps, take similar work that all the projects may have. Probably the other projects deal with some similar issues as Silvanus, but at the same time tries to, you know, if something missing from one project, like the, if you want the insurance or the financial part, we can use it to take input and feedback if we want, and not only feedback, but somehow, you know, to correlate, to exchange ideas, exchange discussion, conversation. That this is the goal of Firelog, to try to unify, to harmonize all the work that is being carried out currently for at least the 5 major projects. Okay, Firing is a networking project, but Firing has a good, let's say, has done a good work on establishing the needs of the first responders, the challenges that they face every day, and also a good mapping of what is out there, what technology is out there. And this is something that we can use, by the way, for Silvanus as well, if we want to take the technologies. And all these are publicly available. That this is important. Okay, it's not something closed.
Absolutely, the community engagement and what we can give to the community of firefighters, to civil protection authorities, and everything that is being developed in the project is for the public awareness and for public use. And also, perhaps this is a good time to also mention some of the Silvanus demonstration activities is also considered to be public. So we hope to be able to share some amazing results in the near future. And please keep let's say, looking forward to the website and other social media posts for any such announcements to come through. I think I will now hand over to Lovorko for the final part of the agenda.
Thank you, Thank you, George. I can share my screen now for what I hope is the last time. But also, I would also like to commend Firelog and all the other innovation action projects that we have mentioned. I think the cooperation is working very well so far, and I invite all the attendees to also check their website and social media accounts. We can also send them in our following correspondence. Let me share my screen to open the discussion here. I hope you can see it. Within the EU Green Week program, we have extracted, let's say, the most important question as to how we align the objectives of this project with the objectives and aspects set by the EU Green Week. And this is summarized in one question: how will the results of Silvanus contribute to the 3 important aspects of green transformation: zero pollution, circular economy, and biodiversity? I mean, we have already seen some of these aspects mentioned during the pilot presentations. I don't know if anybody wants to step in and go into more detail on this question, whether it's from the presenters or from the attendees.
I can always start, just to break the ice, if that's the right word. I think out of the 3, surely zero pollution has to take a certain degree of, let's say, prominence, because the longer the fire ignition is, let's say, is taking place, the chance of being influenced by the environmental factors, the wind, the temperatures, and spot fires, and different categories of fires or secondary fire ignitions also is possible. which is again leading to higher volume of pollutants being released into the air. And towards achieving zero pollution, absolutely it is important and vital to identify the location of the fire, because we are not talking about very accurate location maps. That, I mean, in an urban area, everybody are now using either Google Maps or Apple Maps, and they know exactly where they are, even with your with the Google Street View and Apple images. I was experiencing this one time. I was like, wow, you can take a picture of a building, and the more you walk with your camera held on a vertical level, you even can do virtual navigation, like turn left, turn right, not in a map, but in a more realistic, augmented way. That level of urbanization for the navigational aspect is not available in the forest, which means even if you see a fire or even if you see a smoke, it is very hard to know the distance at which this exists and the pathway, because there is no roads available, right? So it's very hard to even navigate the pathway. So these are the types of challenges I think the Silvanus is undertaking. And hopefully the visit to Gargano, as Giovanna mentioned, will offer us the first insight into the practical challenges. If we want to deploy a drone, what are the regulatory requirements we need to be aware of? Whether you can fly a drone beyond a certain elevation. Of course, this should not interfere with the air traffic controls, and it should not appear in the radar systems. So there are several practical guidelines and methodologies that needs to be taken into account apart from the technical requirements. And I think zero pollution is what we will aim to achieve with the technologies and with the data sources we have identified. But surely the other topics of circular economy and biodiversity also plays a key role. So that's let's say me breaking the ice. So let's have an open discussion.
Basically, to summarize, Silvanus, with its detection and preparedness and prevention platform, can help to achieve the minimal amounts of pollution caused by wildfire, either by early detection or by entire prevention, because the longer the wildfire lasts, the more particles go into the air, and the more long-term is the danger of pollution in that particular area and beyond, caused by certain wildfire.
Indeed.
Am I on the right
Absolutely
path?
That's the main objective. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And I mean, biodiversity is pretty clear, because we have in a particular phase restoration, adaptation, and improvement of biodiversity as a key component of the project.
Yeah, I think what is important is also to note there are several environmental publications, especially from organizations such as WWF and other global world or global agencies, identifying the decay of the insect species and the decay of, let's say, the ecological damage, which is I think what the report says is it's exponentially increasing. And if there is, I mean, we need to talk in a more, let's say, pragmatic way. We need to think about the food chain. If an insect species dies out completely, then it disrupts the food chain, in which there are a lot of dependency upon the, let's say, from ground insects to birds, they exist. And that balance, if it is not maintained, can lead to catastrophic effects. And one such report is the lack of bee population that is in decline for a period of time now, is causing a lot of, let's say, concerns. And we can hear a lot more news publications in the mainstream media talking about why it is important for bee population to be maintained at a certain level, so that we don't be affected by adverse climatic conditions. And given the high temperatures that we see across Europe and the rising water levels, let's say the decrease in the ice structures in Arctic and Antarctic regions, it's all linked with each other. And the problem, I think, this is my personal opinion, is there is, despite the level of information available, there is a significant lack of awareness among the public of the micro behaviors that we undertake today could have a generational impact in the future. And there are no easy solutions or easy answers how to bridge the gap. And yeah, I mean, despite the COP26, which recently concluded in Glasgow, people were enthusiastic for 6 months, I would say. And then slowly the conversation tapered off. Different countries have different priorities now, especially with the war in Ukraine, and people having to rethink the energy security market and the coal. It creates a chain reaction, right? So it's not just one action that causes a trigger point, but the whole conversation since, let's say, COP26 has changed. And I don't know whether we will be in a position to go back to the same level of enthusiasm for climate change and biodiversity protection and preservation in the near future, but this is one of the challenges for Silvanus as well, and using the platform such as the webinars to promote the necessity, the need, and keep the conversation active and alive among the stakeholders and more importantly, the general public as well.
Well, the project itself is going until 2025 for 3 more years. So we hope we will turn the pendulum again on to contribute to turning the pendulum again on the side of enthusiasm, just like it was after, like you mentioned, during and after COP26. And related to that, circular economy as another component. I guess this is also quite clear. I mean, forest resilience is necessary for the resources not to just disappear. And extreme wildfire can also make huge setbacks in the area of circular economy. So I don't know if there are any comments about this, how we can summarize how our project outputs can alleviate some of these concerns.
Yeah, I think Laurko, I will be your moderator for the session because I think you're sharing the screen and I see some hands are being raised as well.
Excellent. Because
no
I'm
problem.
not...
Luisa, yes, I think you wanted to say something before Joanna, right?
Yep. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Sorry, because I wanted to add. You have described the problem from a top-down perspective, and what I think is very interesting in Silvanus is that we are also working from a bottom-up. For example, in our demonstrator, we are using concepts of biodiversity and also of circular economy, because when we apply cattle grazing to do fire prevention, and we are doing it in the small demo sites, and it has been proven so fruitful, and also it has many side benefits like ecosystem, not only the economic or economical outcome that we have from creating cows and sheep, because we sell the products and we sell their meat, but also it has many ecosystem services associated, namely that the soil is more preserved because the cattle adubates the soil. The cattle also works on the soil improvement through the mechanical how do you say, movement of the soil, and so there are many benefits beyond only the fire prevention and the direct fire prevention and the direct economic benefits of exploring cattle assets. So I think that bringing to Silvanus this ecosystem service accountability, it's also a very interesting thing that we are planning to do on our demo, at least from a very upper level. And this is a solution that can prevent that can it shows itself as having many positive outcomes. So I think we address the biodiversity and the circular economy issue a lot, at least in our demo, and this is a very good outcome from Silvanus. Also, I would like to profit from the situation, from this moment, to ask you to excuse me because I must really leave for a very important meeting. And if you don't have questions for the Portuguese demo, I would just say goodbye.
Yeah, thanks, Luisa. That's
thank you a lot. And sorry for having jumping out, but I cannot control more my agenda. Sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
Bye.
Thanks for joining.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Joanna, I think you have your hand raised, please.
Yes, a very small aspect. I think that these three issues, zero pollution, circular economy, and biodiversity, are really very integrated in a vision of green transition, but also in our project. In the circular economy, for my point of view, can be a component, a strategy to guide the regeneration action, for example, in the restoration phase. In Italy, for example, we have constraints for burned areas. For example, for after 5 years after the fire, nothing can be done. But with the project strategy and with the circular economy strategy, the project can guide the choice of policy maker and stakeholder, even municipalities, for example, by including this kind of strategic in an integrated manner by the economic point of view, by the landscape point of view, by the cultural point of view, by the environmental point of view. Strategies now are not always clear in our territories, but this kind of aspect could be an important point to guide the policymaker in the restoration phase in our territories, for example. Thank you.
Thanks, Giovanna. I think that is very important because, as you rightly said, these three topics are so interrelated. You can't talk about one without the other. Maybe there are there any questions from the participants? Is there any observations or comments, your own personal experience on the topic of either wildfire management or even forest restoration? Please feel free to share your thoughts. Let's try to have an open discussion. I think the presenters have been talking for a long time, and maybe maybe want to give us a break as well.
Yeah, may I, Krishna?
Please, George, please.
Yeah. So both, let's say, all the three of the zero pollution, the circular economy, the biodiversity, all these are very, very difficult aspects to deal with. For example, for the biodiversity, as you said, if one species of an animal or something like it does not exist anymore, then you change the whole chain, and probably this whole chain is going to bring you to catastrophic results after a few years, depending on what has been, let's say, affected. In general, what, let's say, I believe, let's say for Silvanus, if we try to focus the biodiversity, it's a restoration. For example, for the areas that have been burned, it's a restoration mainly issue, but also sustainability issue. For the areas that still have forests, let's say that we are hoping that are not going to be burned, it's mainly a prevention issue. So we have to provide all the Silvanus, the result of the Silvanus. There is no, let's say, at least in my point of view, there is no way that Silvanus is going to offer some good results towards this aspect. The zero pollution is really difficult. What do we mean by zero pollution? We mean zero pollution due to the fire itself, for, let's say, the material that is being burned. In order to have zero pollution, then you must have no fire. It's really simple. Do we mean zero pollution? For example, we have a forest and we try to keep it clean. We don't throw wastes, you know. We try to that's zero pollution also, but it's also prevention, because if you go in a forest, the forest has its own, let's say, fuel, its own fuel. If you go to a forest and you just throw a paper, you are adding, let's say, fuel to the current situation, and this fuel, under certain circumstances, maybe be the reason for a fire ignition.
That's a good observation. Yes.
Yeah. So zero pollution. It's, you know, pollution is it's also a new cycle there. from prevention stage to again to the response, and we have to see how we are going to manage all this. But the other aspect that Silvanus, is focusing is sustainability. Sustainability is a key to all this. Restoration is good. We may find, suppose that you have an area that has been burned, okay, for fires. So restoration, there's the natural, the physical restoration that the forest tries to rebirth, let's say, by itself. There are some cases that it is done. There's other cases that this cannot be done. But there is also the natural, let's say, the human supported restoration. Okay. Suppose that you, as Silvanus and as a project, as human, as a strategy, as policy, we manage to restore, let's say, a forest, and the forest is rebirthing, and again, animals and plants are growing, and the situation comes back. But okay, how do you ensure that this is going to stay? There's the sustainability. How? With prevention. How Silvanus is going to provide prevention through early warning, prevention through specific measures, prevention through training. Training of people is extremely important. Prevention could be through land use change. So there are numerous, let's say, aspects that we must take care. But I think that Silvanus has to give a lot on this, and of course the other projects as well. But okay, it's a bit the start of the project now, and we cannot see everything in more detail. But these are difficult issues, and in general, environment is a difficult issue because it's a multi-parametric, let's say, topic, and you cannot say, yeah, I need, let's say, a key to open a door and I solved my problem. But if you may solve one problem, but you may create some other problem, or you may create, let's say, something else. It's a bit chaotic, but I think that we have a lot to discuss the next 3 years.
I completely agree, George. One of the let's say the objectives of the Green Deal is also to set KPIs. To have this zero fatalities, reduction of the carbon footprint by certain percentage, and we have to achieve all those. But the call itself has set the deadline of 2030. So with the consortium, with other projects, the brainstorming behind what is happening now is, since the project Silvanus is going to finish by 2025 March, is there a case we can make that by 2030, what we expect to have, or what impact the project outcomes will have by 2030, and can we linearly regress back to 2025 and say, what are the keystones we can demonstrate, the measurable demonstrations which we can achieve by 2025? And still there are discussions taking place how this metric will be evaluated, what is the baseline for such a metric to be developed. So since, let's say, following up on that conversation, we may not achieve zero pollution within the scope of the project, but if we can take steps, even granular steps towards achieving zero pollution, and of course, I agree that the concept of pollution should be extremely well defined. Whether you're talking about CO2 pollution, whether we are talking about garbage disposal, which can also disrupt the biodiversity aspects of a forest, because sometimes, again, I'm not sure about the pilot sites in Europe, but at least in my personal experience, forest has become an increasing, let's say, ground for dumping waste. Dumping waste which are organically decomposable, which is not a bad thing, I would say, but inorganic materials which are being dumped illegally against government regulations across the world, especially in a low socioeconomic regions of the world, is having a direct impact on the sustainability of the forest and the maintenance of the ecological balance between, let's say, between various parameters, or let's say various attributes contributing to the forest. So there are open challenges and open questions which are yet to be addressed, but hopefully we can try to consolidate our report across the 11 pilot sites we have. I mean, I was really thankful for Luisa for identifying one small step, very tangible, measurable, and practically demonstrable activities that are being carried out on the ground to promote awareness and also to share the knowledge by doing certain practices. What can we communicate to the other communities who may not have this same awareness and same infrastructure to be able to have a cattle farm to control the fuel? Perhaps this is something that they can investigate and learn from mutual sharing of certain experiences. Kusrini, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Krishna. I want to give my opinion about the statement. How will the result of Silvanus contribute to the important thing in zero pollution, circular economy, and biodiversity? Just as I mentioned in my presentation, the forest fire has caused a serious impact in the economic, ecologic, and also health. When forest fire happened in Indonesia, in central of Kalimantan, to 2019, smoke are everywhere, and the citizen cannot go anywhere, even for going to school or to work. The loss is not only because of the loss of the plant and the animal, but also because the effect of the smoke. After fire, it's not easy to make forest like the previous, although we do replanting because the environment has been changed. So best practice to do the restoration from many countries, I think it will be best to share so the others can do the same thing to make the best way in restoration. Thank you. One
Thanks.
more, sorry.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
The technology that will be developed in this project, yes, really weighted by stakeholders, including Indonesia, Krishna. Although Indonesia is not pilot in A and B, the government is waiting for the result, the technology for fire managing. The stakeholder curious is what is the right technology to manage the fire, especially in the peatland. So if there is partners that can give the proper technology, so maybe Indonesia will very interested to know about it.
I think this actually goes back to the point of saying different regions across the world have different socioeconomic, let's say, positions, and there is a strong need to promote awareness among the governments to allocate funds, to allocate infrastructure, to allocate resources, prioritizing some of the expected, let's say, negative impacts of wildfire. At least from talking to Nelson from the Brazilian Phase A and Phase C activities related to preparedness and restoration, one of the key challenges I was noted is when you talk about fire, people don't have fire engines. It's not very common to deliver or to bring water in fire engines to an Amazonian fire. And the reason is also to go back to the fact that some of these fires are caused for political purposes or economic purposes. If you want to build a flat, if you want to build new housing, because the population growth is there, you simply go into the forest region and you don't think about the long-term impact these types of activities can have on the not only on the economy but also on the climate conditions. So there is a very strong need to have a cross-disciplinary demonstration activities that can identify and validate some of the key impacts certain technologies can have, and of course drones is just one part of it. Especially the robots, the ground robots can again be more useful if that is something that we can progress effectively in the next, let's say, forthcoming period. And also that the primitive use of even satellite data, even using, let's say, environmental data, weather data, all these are global satellites being, I mean, the data sets is available. It's only a matter of the ability, the knowledge to be able to process information and have some insights being developed. I think those types of knowledge gaps, once filled, can provide a lot more autonomy to different regions across the world to develop their own nowcasting models or their own internal weather models to predict and to forecast the spread of the fire, which can really help us to prevent the spread and take some really strong mitigation actions. I think that's all from my side. I don't know if there's any other questions from the participants. Any other observations? I don't see anyone's hands raised. Kusini, I think you want to put your hand down, or do you have some follow-up to have? Sorry, just checking. Okay. So Lovorko, I don't see anyone's hands are being raised. You are muted, Lovorko. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, not muted anymore, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, excellent. Just wanted to add that 0 is always a tricky word when it comes to target determination. But as you have already said, Krishna, we can always try and aspire to achieve targets that are really close to this word, which is always a tricky word. 0 pollution or 0 fatalities and so on. I think that's it. I think that's a wrap. I want to thank you to everybody who has attended the webinar. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can check our homepage, our website, and just to have a note that this was an event organized within the EU Green Week. Again, thank you to the organizers, and we will definitely be in touch with the attendees and all the ones who have registered and sharing our newest results and updates on our website and social media. So thank you again to everybody for attending. And if there are no other questions left, we will definitely be in touch and we will update you with the evolution of our, as you can see, quite ambitious project. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.